how dare you question science? Have you gone to school? Have you no culture? So believe it or not, but the internet was created not to actually help you communicate and to watch pornography. It was actually to have a mass surveillance system over the entire human population. American power hid behind multilateral organizations such as the United Nations, the World Bank, such as the World Trade Organization. When the Berlin Wall fell, there was an American State Department official named Francis Fukuyama, and he wrote a very influential essay called The End of History. And for decades, capitalism was in a struggle with communism. And in his essay, Fukuyama argued that with the triumph of capitalism, we've come to the end of history, meaning we now know what humanity most strives for, which is a liberal consumer democracy. And this, for him, was the apex of human civilization. And this creates what is called the unipolar moment, where America is the global hegemon. And it creates a world that is heavily globalized, capitalistic, and very individualistic. And we've come with this war in Iran to the end of this moment. So let me first explain the three major characteristics of this unipolar moment. The first is what we call Pax Americana, where American power guaranteed peace in the entire world. And America was able to do so through three mechanisms, okay? The first is, of course, its military power, but specifically aerial supremacy, which was backed up by special forces and the CIA. So the CIA was able to infiltrate every single government in the world and identify who would be loyal to the American empire and then promote this person. If there were individuals that challenged the American empire, these people were demoted or eliminated. Now, what's good about this is that it did bring peace to very problematic regions. For example, in East Asia, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, China, Vietnam did not compete against each other. They just participated in the global economy, which brought tremendous wealth to the East Asia region. Then you have something called surveillance. And basically what I mean by that is the internet. So believe it or not, but the internet was created not to actually help you communicate and to watch pornography. It was actually to have a mass surveillance system over the entire human population so that the Pentagon, the military, knew exactly the vibe or the culture, the attitudes, the emotions of each region. And through social media, through mechanisms such as Facebook and Twitter, they were able to manipulate certain emotions. And the third is something called a rules-based international order. Okay, and what this means is American power hid behind multilateral organizations such as the United Nations, the World Bank, such as the World Trade Organization. And so people didn't notice that the American empire was dominating everything. They believed that the world was fair and just, and through logic and reason and debate, they could present their case. So for the longest time, this Pax Americana provided peace and stability to the world, which brought tremendous prosperity. Number two is the supremacy of science. So for most of human history, people were religious. They believed in gods. But with the rise of Pax Americana, science became the dominant religion of the whole world. The classic example is COVID. COVID was raging across the world, and then they introduced vaccines. So when I first heard about the vaccines, I was a bit skeptical. I said to my friends, vaccines used to take about 10 years to develop. And that's when the virus is stable. But this COVID is constantly mutating, and they haven't have done enough trial research. So is it really safe to take these vaccines? And whether they were Chinese or American, their response was the same, which is, how dare you question science? Have you gone to school? Have you no culture? Okay? And this shows you how science has become the new religion of the world. And you think about it, the scientists that run the world, they're actually transnational priests. Where if you're a scientist in China, you're not actually loyal to China, you're actually loyal to the international order of science, because that's how you get promoted, right? You get published in Nature or Science. If you win an award, that's how you get rewarded, okay? So you're better off being loyal to the brotherhood of science rather than your own nation state. And of course, it is the American empire that controls science. And the third unique aspect of the unipolar movement is, of course, the universality of the US dollar. Just a piece of paper, you think it's gold, you think there's value in it. And not just you, but everyone around you, so that if you take your US dollars, you can go anywhere in the world and buy yourself a villa, enjoy a nice vacation, or fly around. But not only that, but you aspire in life to accumulate as much US dollars as possible. Is there really a difference between $100 million and $100 billion? There's actually no difference. You can't spend it. But you want to achieve as much as possible, and as a result, you focus your entire life on accumulating as much as possible. So these are the three main pillars of the unipolar movement. And again, in the beginning, this led to tremendous peace and prosperity throughout the world. The problem, though, is that over time, these three pillars started to decay. Pax Americana started to itself ignore the rules-based international order, which itself created. America started to bomb countries such as Libya and Syria without international approval. Most recently, it went to attack Iran without even asking for the opinion of the world. So this leads to the idea of hubris. Maybe the first generation appreciates the importance of collaboration. But the second generation, the children, are arrogant. They want to enjoy their power. So that's problem number one. Supremacy of science basically becomes a religion in itself, orthodoxy. So that science does not become the main engine of innovation in the world, it becomes the main engine of orthodoxy or suppression. And that's why for the past 20, 30 years, we've seen very little in terms of technological innovation. Don't tell me Silicon Valley is the center of innovation in the world, okay? All they do is make food delivery apps. What we've seen these past 20, 30 years is the scaling out, the popularization of innovation, right? Where American technology is spread throughout the world, especially in China. But we have not seen actually major innovation in science itself. And the third thing, the university of the US dollar leads to printing dollars, okay? Corruption. Where because America is able to print as much US dollars as it wants to fund its corruption, it does so. And what this means is basically it's made inequality worse, it's made corruption worse, it's made people very lazy. If you're a young person, you're like, no matter how hard I work, I'm still screwed in the end. So I refuse to play this game. Either I refuse to play this game, so I quit, counting, lie flat, or I gamble. $1 million in Bitcoin, it'll go up to $10 million, or the stock market, or sports betting, okay? So this has led to today, basically, all right? So we shouldn't see this war against Iran as just a decision of one person, Donald Trump, or the machinations of a country, Israel. This war in Iran is happening because we've come to the end of the unipolar moment, because the American empire has become corrupt, self-indulgent, lazy, arrogant. With the end of the American empire, with the end of Pax Americana, we are shifting towards a new world. And this new world, some will survive, most will not. Where there's a paradigm shift, people are forced to make a hard choice of either adapt or die. So let me show you how the world needs to change if it is to survive. Basically, what has to happen is we have to move from an emphasis on efficiency to resilience. Today, it's really about how to make things as cheap as possible as quickly as possible to make as much money as possible, okay? The idea of efficiency. The idea of resilience is to appreciate that there will be a series of crises, and what you need to do is focus on adapting and surviving these crises, okay? To survive in the future, there has to be three major changes. So the first thing you need to do is move from materialism to spirituality. Right now, the entire world, these nation states have convinced the population what matters is your material well-being. If you are driving a car, if you have a house, if you have enough food to eat, then you should shut up and obey because we're doing a good job. But in the future, governments can't do that because there are not enough resources to go around. Therefore, the government has to make you believe that what matters is your happiness, your spirituality. And that usually means a renewed focus on religion. Second thing is to move from a system of individuality to community and family. All right, and what this means is today what you're taught in school, what you're taught in society is what matters is you, me, okay? The ego. If it's doing well for me, it's good. I don't actually care about other people. In the future, you have to focus on building a community, on helping others. And the last major shift is from the old to the young. Okay, and this is very simple, and this is actually the hardest thing to do, which is like today, most countries, especially the wealthy Western industrial nations, are controlled by the baby boomers, the elderly, the gerontocracy. But for society to thrive in the future, this power needs to shift to a younger generation, ideally maybe in the 30s. And you think this is easy to do, it's not. Because they have a lot of money and they really enjoy living, and they're also really selfish. So this is actually the hardest problem to solve for most Western societies.